Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, your Virgo May 2024 reading and forecast. Hi, I'm Nigel St. James, clairvoyant. Well, this month we have a very interesting and famous deck that known as the Thoth Tarot. Now, the real heroine of this story, of this deck, was a woman called Lady Freda Harris, who was married to a British politician, so she had plenty of time on her hands and money. What was supposed to be a 6 months assignment turned into a 5-year thing. She was meticulous. And look, I would be surprised if Crowley himself had much input into the development of the deck whatsoever. I think it really comes from her artistic genius and inspiration that we have the artwork that we do today, which was first published in about 1969, about 20 odd years after Crowley's death, incidentally. It shouldn't really be called the Crowley deck. It should be called the Freda Harris deck because it's all her, although she was probably influenced, I think, rather more than Crowley, probably more so by an Austrian mystical guy called Rudolf Steiner, if you look at his works and see some of the stuff that comes up in these paintings. But I love the artwork on this. They give great readings, and you and I are going to find some good things in them. Now, you know I've done a number of one-on-one clairvoyant readings for people all from over different parts of the world over FaceTime and Skype. The details are in the description. There's a link also to the fees. What I do not charge for, and which I also encourage you if you're minded to do, is healing, which takes about half an hour, and that's free. That's for free. And because that gift of healing, which was provided to me, in addition to the gift of clairvoyance, healing was provided to me on the basis that I get nothing in return. So it's my sole duty to provide it. Now, let's get these underway for you. What's this tablecloth moving around? Let's see here. We have adjustment. Very interesting. Here is the 8 of Cups. Crowley's great contribution to this, probably in some respects, is to come up with stupid names or titles to put on the minor arcana cards, and that's one of them. Here's the Hermit. A couple come out here, so we'll use them both, shall we? There's the Queen of Cups and Queen of Swords. Oh, very interesting. Well, I'll bring the camera around. You and I can have a good close look at the imagery on these cards together while they speak to us both, and I'll do the reading for you. Now, I think I said that I considered Freda Harris to be the real champion of this deck, the artist. And in honor of her, the lady, I've put the outsides of this spread of yours with things that appeal to many ladies. Handbags and shoes and things. Now, what I find interesting is this first card here, which is this card titled Indolence. Indolence. Well, as I say, I don't know if there's much to be gained from titles, but it is, of course, the 8 of Cups. And the astrology of it for me is Saturn ruling the first decan of Pisces, that 19th of February to the end of February. Well, Saturn is about structure, organization, discipline sometimes. Some people think there's a very heavy energy associated with it, but there's also responsibility with it as well. And Pisces, of course, is intuitive, spiritual, likes fantasy, can be very emotional. And I think what's happening here, and with the number 8, the numerology there, I have a mystical association with the planet of Mercury, that flighty Mercury. Now, altogether, Saturn seems to be coming in and deadening completely the waters of Pisces. Saturn is dominating and suffocating the joy of Pisces. And there is that flightiness of Mercury, as I say, present. So the overall influence resembles dark Saturn with no growth. Now, the other thing, of course, is that Mercury actually happens to be in detriment in Pisces, so there's astrological discord as well. Let's have a look at the painting and see what we can take from it. Notice how the handles of these cups are broken, these copper cups. Maybe you have had too much pleasure and excessive indulgence. Now the waters of the emotions stand still, and they are not renewed by any waterfall or spring, and the water begins to stagnate, and the mists of foulness rise up into the skies and cloud the light of clarity. Now, there are a couple of lotus flowers there. Well, they continue to spill out their energies, but I think in this situation it's a wasted effort, because this foul, stagnant water swallows up their small amount of freshness and vitality immediately. That water coming from the flowers sinks into the sluggish marsh. Do you know what I think's going on here? I think that you have already wasted enough on your energy on someone or on people who give you nothing in return. Now, you have filled them with your energy, but they were like a bottomless barrel, and as a result you may well feel empty and sucked dry. I think that this painting speaks to me. Of course, it's open to you to interpret these paintings however you like, but the painting speaks to me of an interpersonal situation in which the river of energy has really stagnated, such that the more you try to revitalize a relationship which has fallen into a rut, the more powerless and empty you'll feel. And any attempt to re-energize the other person or the other people is just going to spread your energies out further, really without achieving any good result for you. I think it's time for you to consider yourself, to set some limits, and to say no. Now, it may be an old behavior pattern of yours to always direct your love towards people from whom nothing comes in return. This might be a sign also indicating your fears of accepting love. Now, in either of those situations, what people come to mind for you in this context? And are you really ready to dare to set limits and to stand by them? And in what situations do you hide your true feelings? These are things that you need to think about now. Well, then we have next, I think there's a Venus energy around here. Venus in Libra with Saturn exalted. This time you see Saturn is doing a good job and it's helping you. It's allowing you to set things straight in your own mind. I call this the daughter of the Lords of Truth, this woman, the ruler of the balance. And here there's almost a balancing of opposites in a sense. This card, I think, really portrays the sign of Libra. Well, I guess you can get that by these scales, really, in a sense, can't you? A young woman here, here's her head that you can see there. She holds this great magic sword between her legs, and she's balancing on her toes. Now, if you will look carefully, you'll see that she's actually balancing on the tip of the sword, because only absolute concentration and stillness, which come from finding your inner center, will allow this condition of equilibrium, of balance to take place. And the slightest distracting thought, well, that would cause her and you to waver and destroy the balance that she's found, the balance that is the nature of the universe. Now, if you look here, you'll see that the main colors here are blue and green. Blue is the color of spiritual and intellectual powers, such as thinking and ideas and wisdom. And green is the color of creativity, the power for you to put ideas into action. And the downward pointing sword, I think, lends a similar meaning, where your powers of thought are directed to and put in contact with the earth, your element, which serves her and which is going to serve you. There are a couple of other interesting aspects to the painting which I might just point out. Her shoulders are covered in these ostrich feathers everywhere that's there, and they're associated with the goddess of Maat, the ancient Egyptian goddess of justice, and her face is masked. All her attention is turned inward. And this makes her receptive to ideas and direction from her inner guide, which is something that I'm sure you are going to be doing. And she bears on her head the crown of Thoth, which is named, deck is named after, isn't it? Did you know that actually Thoth is the Egyptian god of wisdom? And hanging from the crown are the large bowls of the cosmic scales. The alpha is an the letter A there, and the omega, the Greek letter meaning the beginning and the end, with which the universe weighs everything. Do you know, I think that this energy here is really a call to you to avoid all the extremes in your daily life just at the present. Now, this may refer to emotional disturbances in relationships, or at work, of course, or in some creative activity, or in dealings with money and contracts. Total centeredness and inner balance are needed by you if the great new idea arising within you now is to bear fruit. Because you know that from a position of balance, everything develops in a balanced way, in its place, and given its appropriate value. You will know that storms of life throw us all out of balance again and again. And this constant change between being centered and uncentered is the process which teaches you to be more conscious from moment to moment in order to retain that inner peace and clarity when you have found it. So I'd say that what this is saying to you is to pay attention to what situations in your daily life tend to throw you off balance, and discover the conditions under which you find harmony again. Carry this quality with you more and more now as you move through your daily activities. Ask yourself this: what really helps you reach your center and to stay there? And what happens to you when you lose it? But I would have these thoughts in mind. I am balanced and centered. I honor my word. I value being truthful even in difficult situations. The abundance and beauty of nature is a reflection of my own nature, and I am at rest in my own center. Now, I wanted to turn next to, let's have a look here. This is a really great Virgo energy, this. Fantastic. This is the Hermit, but who I call the prophet of the eternal, the magus of the voice of power. And I think this is the process and the time now where you are coming in to find your own light, where you are going inward, where you are completing things off, where there's a harvesting, where you are resting in your center, and where you are showing patience. Do you know that the Hermit here has set out in search of internal fulfillment and has found the light within? And he is so fulfilled by the wealth of this inner realm that for him the external world appears colorless and unimportant. Well, when you just rest inside yourself, you have come home. There's no reason to chase after the deceptive light of that which is external and which always passes away. I will say, though, that this journey inward can be difficult. You need to have courage and trust in yourself in order to embark on it. For before you reach this internal sought-for life, you can be led through apparently danger-filled realms of your own shadow. And I think that these are represented on the card by the poisonous snake. I just saw there, here it is here, by that poisonous snake that's there. And also by this three-headed hound. Now, in mythology, what was that called? Was that Cerberus? Yeah. Now, two of Cerberus's heads, two heads here, are looking forward, and one is looking back. Do you notice that? His attention is directed partly towards the past in order to make sure that all the important details have been brought to completion. Because, as you know, all unfinished business must be attended to before energies can be applied to new things. The integration of the animal in you is also a necessary thing to do before you can emerge as a total whole being. And the transforming light, that's one of the major characteristics here. That light of the inner clarity, it fills bit by bit all the levels of your being. The fruits of your surrender to your internal self will become visible. The grain can be harvested and shared with others. Now, the hermit's not generally looked on favourably by others and is generally misunderstood. I guess you could say he's someone who marches to the beat of a different drummer. And he only enters into those relationships which offer union, togetherness on deeper levels. And if that's not possible, well, the hermit prefers to remain alone for the time being. I think this is really inviting you to listen to your inner wisdom and gather together with the people who will be supportive of you. Discover your inner guide and become acquainted with your inner healer. Now, if you happen to be alone, accept your aloneness. And don't concern yourself with anybody who doesn't understand you, who'd rather see you as being part of the flock of the sheep. Now, do you have any unresolved situations or relationships in your life? Make a list of all the situations which you now wish to resolve or in some way bring to a completion. Because you realize that whoever searches for the internal light, you can't be weighed down by unresolved conflicts. Accounts must be settled. You of all people would know that. But do say this: I enjoy the feeling of completion and resolving things. I'm not going to compromise on anything which is important to me, and I can enjoy being alone because I can stop being alone whenever I choose to. Now, here is my girl. A lot of Virgo on this as well. Libra could also be important to you during this period. Libra's shown up there, and it's all showing up here. So Libra energy or someone Libra could well be important to you, I think. This is the Queen of Swords, who I call the Queen of the Thrones of Air. Now, she's the watery aspect of air. Water esoterically because she's a queen, and air because she's in swords. And what this is really getting at is, I think it's saying that it's a time for you to cut through old masks and roles. Because coming to you now is a great clarity following this process. There's a rational, intellectual sort of aspect to you, which will give way to something far more emotional, I suspect, but you'll be very objective. Setting aside your masks, giving up the security offered by playing well, familiar roles that you have rehearsed over and over. Well, of course, that means voluntarily giving up habitual defense mechanisms. But she's holding a sword here, as you'll see, and with you using your sword of penetrating insight, you'll come to see that the masks that you wear don't only just protect and camouflage you, but they might also be separating you from your true self, and they might also be separating your true self from other people. So I suppose the energetic cutting through of your masks is actually going to free you. And this energy here is I would say, leading you out of these clouds into clarity now and openness. And these are interesting, these crystals that are sticking up there around, let me bring it in closer so you can see it. These crystals that are sticking up around her head that are there, I actually think that they are the symbols of this new clarity. And they're supporting the head of a child, which might be referencing the birth of a new you. And behind the discarded masks, there's actually also here, I think also I'd say it's like a childlike innocence that's now set free within you. The openness and the receptiveness of a child coming together with sharp, crystal clear insight. And this is an insight into a person or a situation. Well, that allows you to cut through things and to see where you stand. And I think this is saying to you to not allow yourself to get caught up in the complexities, in the emotional complexities of a situation. I think what we have here is that you need to use your intellect to make an unbiased decision about a person or a situation. And do you know, your feelings, your emotional feelings for the person or the situation, your compassion or your empathy may distract you, but you have to go with your head and not with your heart. This is not a time to beat around the bush about a person or situation. It is a time to act, and to act with vengeance. Now, I think you're in a process of separating yourself more and more from old roles and behavior patterns. Now, I do admit that this can bring painful experiences with it, but it's worth it. The clarity sets you free. The weight is lifted from your shoulders. And which of the roles you most easily and most often hide behind? And are you ready to drop them, I wonder? Stand back and look at yourself in different roles. Now, some you'll continue to play, but probably now with more awareness. And I think you'll play them until you no longer identify yourself with them. But do say this to yourself now, that my only duty in life is to remain true to myself. Ah, there was another queen around, I think, wasn't there? Oh, yeah. This is the last card. It is. This is the Queen of the Thrones of Waters, or the Queen of Cups, as most people know it. Gemini, Cancer, that's energy coming up here. Do you know, I think that here is a period which you need to be cautious of, because you can become really influenced by external events and other people at this time. You can be moved around by every impact and impression that comes from the outside. Now, the Queen's forms, the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm just looking at her. She's almost translucent. It's very difficult to see where she is, isn't it? Where's her little head? There it is. There, that's her head in there. Because she's kind of enclosed in light beams. So you can really only see her if you look closely, can't you? Now, I have a very mystical response to this Queen of Cups. I don't think her being can really be understood just using the mind. You must feel it, you must sense it. And she is shrouded in mystery. And if you understand this mystery, you will have to go deeply into the realm of sensitivity and feeling. Now, the calm sea on which she is apparently standing here, which we see below it, that has she rests mirrors on her image almost perfectly. What she radiates outwardly is reflected in, or is actually a reflection of, perhaps, the deepest emotional reaches of her being. Now, she's in contact with her feelings, as you will be, and shows them openly and authentically. Now, the people around her, and it may be that the people around you at the time, they may not always understand you or her, but that's not a problem for her, and nor should it be for you. Now, she's got to the stage where she doesn't compromise emotionally. For in order to do so, she'd really have to deny herself. She'd have to pretend. She'd have to pretend that she didn't want to feel deeply. And if she did that, then she might lose the glow of her beauty in doing so. When you are true to yourself, you become beautiful. Now, this, again, bear with me, I'll just pop this down here, because I just happened to notice these things here. White lotus blossoms on the lake, and also up here in her hand. I think they symbolize love of a giving nature. Notice that the lotus roots, these lines, they come up out of the dark, muddy depths of the water. But the leaves, you'll see, and the petals of the lotus, well, they remain untouched by the mud and the water. Don't you see that? Water rolls off the petals, or it rests on them as beads of water. Now, they remain connected to the water and mud, growing from them, but they are different and separate. Blossoming love, too, grows from unconscious realms of instinct and drive, and is fed by it. The light of consciousness causes unconscious energies to arise and appear in a new form. The old appears in a new light. It gets changed, and it's as if an emotional rebirth has taken place. What's that bird there? I'll give you a look at it, and I might have it wrong. Is that a heron? Maybe that's a stork. That's probably what it is. That stork, well, that's the messenger of the returning spring in the northern hemisphere, as I recall. It's the messenger of the new. I think that this particular energy here can also be seen as having some connection with motherhood, family. Cancer the crab in the shell shape that's there, that, I think, stands for family. Now, what I would say here now, that you, as your mother always told you, you are judged by the company that you keep. So make sure that the people around you are positive. By showing your feelings openly, you become beautiful.
And there might be some people who don't understand you. Well, don't worry yourself about it, because there are plenty of other people with whom you can share your feelings. Now, you are open to your emotions and feelings. And remember this always and say it to yourself: my openness and my vitality, that makes me beautiful. It sure does. And you did a beautiful job.
I think you'll agree with me that this deck, when looked at properly the way that we have just done now, has an enormous amount to offer, and the artwork is just genius and brilliant, and that accounts for why it has lasted as long as it has. Anyway, unless I see you privately for a clairvoyant reading or a healing, then I'll see you again next month. And until then, remember one thing, and it is this: that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, it's bye for now.